All right, welcome to another edition of Doggin It, and we got the pleasure of being joined by none other than Jeremy Jones. Double J, how are you?
Good, good. How y'all doing, guys?
Good.
We're doing good, man. We appreciate you coming on. It's been a pretty exciting event over the last few days. What's your take been on the UK Open up until this point, Jeremy?
Oh, a heck of a setup. A lot of work put in by Matchroom, of course, and looks like a lot of work by the players. Everyone looks pretty prepared. I think there's some nerves early, inaugural event, and something new. And like most events right now, there's a lot to play for, not just at the event, but what comes after, right? So. But it's shaping up like most of the pro events these last few years. The guys who are playing the best are advancing, and um, yeah, a couple key matches to look forward to tonight. We'll have final 16.
Yeah. Yeah, they've gotten a lot of, the matches are starting to get a little juicier now. You got some really good matchups. But even before that, lost a couple of key players. Lost Pinyi Ko early on. Lost Jason today. Kachi. Number of Albin
Albin, yeah.
got
Yeah.
beaten 9-0 today. So there's a lot of guys you know, who are good middle of the pack players who are putting in some pretty good performances. Who's stood out to you?
Well, SVB I think has stood out the most.
Yeah, for sure.
I think he's had the toughest layouts and still running out. See a lot of guys playing very consistent. Filler, of course, playing great, but when he was faced with a couple of little tricky ones, he kind of turned the table over to his opponent a few times. Dennis looks good. Looks like the nerves are kind of, dwindling a little bit for Dennis. As great as he is, and if you know him, you can tell he gets a little bit overly nervous early in these tournaments. I think no big deal. He's playing a lot of pool, so he should be all right. But yeah, I think it looks to me so far, Shane's the guy to beat. But you know how 9 ball is; that can change so quickly.
Yeah, it can. Well, and we'll see what happens when it changes to the wood rack for the final 16 and the referees racking change
Race
things
to
up a
11.
little bit. Race to 11.
Nice.
So
Shot clock. There's a lot of factors. So
yeah,
What's your take on how soft these tables been breaking, Jeremy? Because it seems like, at least with some of these guys, I mean, I know you mentioned Shane, having some post break layouts that may have been more difficult, but I saw some of these Spaniards, man, where they're controlling that one ball, coming around 3 rails with ease and consistency, man, and that wing ball's just
yeah,
fine.
I mean, the template or any repeatable rack, and whether they're doing it themselves, racking their own, or with a template, the guys are going to figure out things. Just like I always thought it was a bad rule to put the 2 and 3 on the corners playing 10 ball, or the 2 in the back playing 9 ball. Just because if you consistently put it in one place, the guys are just always going to figure out some kind of remedy, right?
yeah, yeah.
That's why the rule is random, and I think that's a big important part of it. But I think as time goes, they're trying to do all they can to keep the integrity in the game. You try to make mild changes without changing the game completely. Um, 4-inch pockets will help, of course. That didn't unfortunately happen here this week. 4 1/4 is decent, but with the new felt, it's and the template, I think it's probably a bit easy. But
hmm
you never know. I mean, I think 9 ball's here to stay, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Um, Maybe talk about eliminating the 3-point rule, because I think that's an ugly thing to have overall.
Yeah,
I understand the value in it, but you got
What
to
about
understand.
maybe like a 9 on the spot or
Well, that's
a
what I was
big
going to say.
box?
You got to have a long talk with these guys and realize how to get the game where we all want it. And I think you have to have that entity of elite players, and you're still going to get a lot of them come to the top, but we're going to miss some here and there because sometimes they don't get opportunity to play. And I think you might see the 9 go to the spot to where these players got to buck up and say, hey, we got to do what's right for the game and start smashing the rack.
Gotta play
yeah,
some pool.
Yeah.
yeah. It does seem to have, like it's been breaking pretty easily. A lot of the TV matches I've watched, particularly obviously, these are on the TV table, so there's a little bit different atmosphere than the outside tables. But it seems like breaking and getting a shot hasn't been a problem for a lot of guys.
Well, there's only 2 TV tables per
Right.
se. Um, so I've seen more of the landslides on the outer tables, believe it or not, to where I haven't seen a guy pick up the cue or be at the table every time I glance over. It's the same person. Um, it's pretty evident. Nothing against some of the UK players, but some of them, we saw them break in the first match, and they're like, "What is this?" And it only took a one day later before they either watched or somebody helped inform them, "Hey, all you got to do is this with the template from over here, and you're going to be pretty okay." And so a transition in one day is obviously something you don't want, you know, or make it that easy, right? To be able to break the balls effectively. Um, the only good thing is there's pressure. But when you start consistently getting shots after the break at a pretty easy one ball, that pressure will go away a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah, it sure does. Okay.
But it could also go and create some magical moments when you have this format, because we saw it with Shane's World Championship run. It's like all you need is a chip in a chair, and you got a shot at it.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to see some magical things, and um, kind of reminds me of the Texas State Open a few years ago when we played with the template. I can't remember exactly all the rules, but there were a couple 8-packs, threatening the 9-pack and this and that, and I just kept reminding them, Buddy Hall probably would have never lost a tournament if he got to break with the template, maybe. So, I mean, if he had to repeat a shot, is all he had to do to get an opening shot.
It was over.
Yeah, it was probably over. Yeah. So, I don't like changing the rules in the game. I'm not a big fan of call shot and all that kind of stuff. I think the people that invented the games are probably smarter than us. I know they're smarter than me, but you have to figure out how to keep the integrity, right? So,
Right.
so there's some thought, but it's on the player's shoulders as well. So it's not just up to the promoters.
Yeah. Yeah. True. True. Who has impressed you? I mean, outside of the fillers and the Shanes and the heavy hitters at the top, who's been kind of that middle tier player who you've watched this week? Who's really impressed you?
I think Beisterbosch has played well.
He has.
Ruiz suffering some, a little bit of a scuffle at the beginning, right? Not only in his first loss, but in his first win.
Yeah, he shouldn't have gotten out of that.
Yeah, easily got beaten. He's still hanging. A few of the guys I really don't know, to be honest with you. Thorson's, of course, somebody I know, but he's improving. He played a rough first match and has bounced back really soundly. So, and I'm impressed with the guys that are out of the events. A couple of the Americans that are out, Oscar Dominguez, 2 of the matches that he lost really didn't get to shoot much, and we saw how well he was playing here against Shane Wolford today. Tyler Steyer grinded a lot of matches out.
Tyler got some decent wins too under his belt today, especially
for losing his first match.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So let's talk about the American players. Obviously, you have a vested interest in watching them perform. There are a lot of Americans over there for this event, but let's focus on that 3 to 8 type of grouping.
Right.
Billy and Tyler and Shane Wolford and Oscar and Chris.
Mm-hmm.
What did you see from them this week, from their wins and their losses? What did they? I mean, today's match, Shane and Oscar, I thought, there's a little bit of pressure on these guys playing each other at this point in the tournament, and you commentating the match, and them both having aspirations to make Mosconi Cup.
Absolutely.
What did you take away from the event?
Well, I saw some maturity for sure. With a lot of the guys, I kind of feel and see and hear a different Billy Thorpe. I think he really appreciates being able to play, and when he's telling me he's putting the time in back at home, I always believe Billy, of course, but it just sounds a little different, and it sounds very genuine. Oscar, I like kind of the mentality I saw, not much pressure putting on himself, just kind of taking it one shot at a time, and kind of a one shot at a time mentality, probably for the rest of the year, trying to just improve. Tyler, I saw a lot more maturity as well. Not he never was an excuse guy. That's not what I mean. But understanding even there where he didn't get to shoot much, he labeled it, I had a chance early and I fumbled and it cost me. And, Chris has been a little bit up and down with his matches. Of course, some of them you saw against Pia, a lot of pressure on him in that match. All the pressure, to be honest with you, is on him in that match. And he fumbled down the end, but then he played some good matches as well. So, um, there's a lot to work on still, but I do like the maturing of some things I've seen. I actually like Shane Wolford fumbling some, to be honest with you, because he's a hard worker. I know he wants to gain confidence, but he's had probably as much success lately from that 3 to 8 or 4 to 8, whatever you're talking about, right? So sometimes a little fumble in a situation will carry you a little further in the future. So I really don't mind seeing that with a couple of struggles at times, and I think there's a lot of value on the American side now. The one thing they have to remind themselves, and hopefully there's a bunch of Americans back home seeing the differences. We carried more players into today than any other country, which is saying
Is that
something
right?
going for. I believe so. Yeah.
That's pretty strong considering the Polish contingent.
And the fact that there were 340 Brits in there too.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. So you figure the draw had to make some of them advance, even if they had to play each other, right?
They played each other half the time.
Yeah. And I think about Shane Van Boening, and I think about why at times Americans don't see the success that he gets off of the drive he, puts himself through. And that would be, wonder how he gets there. He does it right in front of you every day. If you can't pay attention to that and understand how much value is involved in that, and I think some of the players are seeing that, and I hope some other American players back home actually get out and play big events, because that's really where you're going to see the improvements. You're going to have some fumbles, there's nerves and whatnot, but that's really how Americans are going to make the progress.
Well, from that standpoint, there are more tournaments, and you see these guys playing in more tournaments, and they're bigger stages, and they're playing more, and they're playing tougher competition. Is it just me, or do you also see that it just feels like talent-wise, the U.S. is a little deeper and more solid this year than it has been in the last 2 or 3 years, where, Moscone Cup was basically a 5 or 6 guy roster, and that was all you were really looking at. That seemed logical. Does it seem like it's a little more solid group, a little deeper this year than it has been in the last few years?
Well, I definitely think it's deeper. I think numbers will tell you that, just what we talked about a moment ago as far as day 4 here at the UK Open. But I think that, and I hope anyways, that I think the players recognize this, but I hope a lot of other people recognize this, that it's starting to look a lot more about discarding names and going for work ethics. And participation is not the right word. It sounds like a trophy, right? Participation trophy, right? But being in the mix,
yeah,
and putting yourself in those situations to sometimes fumble, but also put together some great moments. And we're very fortunate in a lot of ways. These players, a lot of sports, they don't get to learn from the best with just entering sometimes and paying an entry fee. And I understand we all have our expenses and understand how expensive the world is, but I mean, this is pretty special stuff for these players. And like I said, I hope more American players try to take advantage of it, because that's really where it's at, and the pool is going in the right direction. So, I mean, past the Moscone Cup, I always tell them, I try to remind them of their own personal careers. I mean, that's really where it's at.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I've been watching a lot of the Americans over the last like 6 months, and it seems like they appear to be more battle tested, and they're not. And the names, like Jeremy said, don't go and phase them. I mean, I saw Billy at the Expo go and give Jason all he can go and handle in the single elimination stage. I saw Tyler now go and take down Max Lechner and a strong Polish player. So it's like there's steps. Shane Wolford's done it over the last 18 months of just continuing to progress each and every event. Oscar is continuing to get stronger and stronger. I mean, we know what we're going to get from the Shanes and the Skies of the world, but it's great to see these guys that are just, they're showing up, and they're not showing up just to go and be a name on a list, but they're showing up and looking tougher.
Yeah, and what I meant by names was actually on the other side of the fence about that, meaning America and fans and other players. Not saying, hey, it should be some names up there that have been there before for America.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not talking. The names they have to play, that's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about now. We're looking at America as far as the guys who want to put in the work, and that's really the direction that I felt like it always should be, and definitely the direction I kind of want to make it head towards. Whether no matter how long I'm involved with the Moscone. So
yeah, it's I think it does make sense, and I hope that a lot of the younger players are looking at guys like Shane Wolford and saying, okay, a year and a half, 2 years ago, you only basically saw him in a lot of these, bar table regional events and things like that. And he made the commitment to step in there and start swinging with the big boys on a regular basis. And he's growing fast. And a lot of these other guys can do that if they put in the time and commitment, like you said.
Yeah, absolutely. I still think America is the place for the most talent. We have more pool clubs than the rest of the world combined, maybe. I don't know, but it's up there. And you look at Oscar Dominguez. He kind of had to disregard his name. Kind of like at one time, of course, during his career, he was one of the top Americans, but can't just throw that very prevalent name in the world of pool, right? For a long time, and he's got to put in the work as well. And same thing with Tyler. He had some great moments in Moscone Cups and whatnot, but realizes it's not a no-brainer. You got to get out there. And
there's no automatics beyond like Shane and Sky.
Beat the roads and the back of them pockets down. So
I love that saying. Who else has stood out to you this week, Jeremy, or at least going into let's say the final 16 player-wise outside of the Americans? I know Josh's still alive, Jason surprisingly out, but who's been on your radar just as a commentator?
I kind of think, I don't even know what the score is here, but I kind of felt like Mario He was going to have a big bounce back after a couple rough tournaments.
Yeah.
Or at least a rough Whirlpool Masters. And, he had a little run in Vegas, but, really hasn't been himself. I kind of feel like he's going to put something together. He's kind of quietly.
Yeah, he's sneaking by, isn't he? He's,
things where there for a year and a half, he was, of course, always looked at, right?
Yeah.
So
he's up 3-1 on Torsten right now.
Okay. I kind of felt like he might do something, especially getting the boot on the World Cup for Max Lettner, which was deserved, I think, and I think Mario will tell you the same thing. I think he's a guy to look at. Ruiz, of course, has put a lot of momentum together.
I'm a Max guy, but that seems a little rough though, just given their successes over the years. And I like Max a lot, and I think he's been playing great. But I mean, you got to go and take him off the top there. I don't think one upset loss last year. I don't know, man.
Yeah, but I mean,
it's tough to swallow.
That's professional sports, Mike. I mean, that's just it's pretty cut
and
dry. So
they shook it up. They shook it up this year quite a bit. I mean, the team that won last year has a new player. They replaced the German who won with Filler with Torsten. It's been a long time since Torsten's been in one of those Matchroom invitational events, and having Efren come in there to play with Beato. I mean, it's they've kind of shaken it up a little bit.
Well, I think they probably asked Beato about it, and he was probably very okay with it, of course. Honestly, but I mean, back to the other one, Lechner getting, over He, and then of course the German getting replaced. I think you have to keep motivation for those spots being available in every professional event. I don't think you can look at any one of those events and say, hey, this is ours to pick, or, oh, they won last time. Same thing with the Moscone Cup. People always say, well, oh, that team won. They should stick together. They should keep that same team. Man, this isn't Little League. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is
it should be merit-based.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the direction that Matchroom wants to go in again. So many people forget that was the case years ago. I mean, when I made my first Moscone Cup, it was based off the Camel Pro Billiard Series with a couple picks there as well. And it went like that for many years. Now it changed hands, what type of rankings they used. but they always did up until the last several years is when they had some hand-picked teams. So I think it's totally correct myself. But
Yeah.
I like the
Yeah.
mix up. When we saw it a few years back when Sky and Billy jumped in there for Team USA, they're not afraid to go with maybe an unpopular pick, but I think it'll be great. I like seeing fresh faces, and that's what we've seen a lot of this year, even from the World Pool Masters, seeing Youngo and Loho Sum go and get invited in there. It's not the same run of the mill guys that we've seen for the last 5 years. It's that you got to go and perform, or your ass is going to get replaced because there's 15 guys behind you that are going to go and want that spot just as bad as you.
yeah, and just like they do in golf, sponsors exemptions, however you want to label it, I think those are good as well. I mean, because hopefully, anyways, a sponsor will put some thought into who they do invite, and there's going to be merit, or there's going to be some kind of quality to add to our events. Um, but yeah, 20 out of 24 at the World Pool Masters were off of essentially rankings, and we all know what's going to happen in 2023. It's going to get even
Yeah.
more direction on what those rankings involve. So I think it's good.
You've been through that a lot though, Jeremy. Not just from being on this side of the booth, but being a player. What's your take on the rankings and from a credibility standpoint? I've talked to a lot of guys, and they seem to be kind of a little jaded from things that have happened in the past, and really giving it their full faith, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I don't know if I totally understand which rankings you're. I'm sure you're talking about the 9-ball rankings.
Right. Yeah.
There was. I don't know if you're talking about total promoters from past or maybe associations. The one thing that Matchroom's obviously trying to do is their business. First off,
Right.
they have to
Right.
keep their doors open. But they're a business that has kept their doors open for a long time, and I don't think that can happen in professional sports, whether it be snooker, fishing, bowling, darts, whatever they do, without it being real. That's the deal with sports. It's real.
Right.
There's not going to be, um, you go punch a clock and sit down and do the same job over and over. It's just much different than a lot of regular life, and so I think there's a lot of quality in it. Of course, guys are going to have question marks because of things that have happened in the past. But if you don't sit back and think about it and see the differences, a lot of people in the past that were in control had some, secondhand or secondary motives, and those
Look at
things.
Mike smile.
Well,
I mean, there was a lot of politics involved
yeah,
years
those
ago, and
things,
there was a
those
lot of
things came to light.
favoritism involved, and
Yeah.
and some of that was Matchroom building the product, right?
Yeah, of course.
Steve Davis never earned his way onto a Moscone Cup team. That was a strategic. So, there were some times where there were picks based on, TV ratings, and you have to build the product. You have to build it to the point where it's so in demand that then you can just do everything completely merit based and go from there, because now you've already built that foundation. So, there was a lot of things in the past that were always a little wonky, but it was usually for business reasons.
Well, and I use the word infancy, right? I mean,
Right.
when things in its infancy, you have a child, you have to take care of it. You have to do things until it can take care of itself.
Right.
And that's kind of the same thing with the Moscone. There it had a lull where there were some issues, are we going to be able to keep it because it wasn't so competitive and whatnot, and so they had to step back in and try and help it again,
Right.
and but they're wanting to get away from that. I mean, they want it to be a well-oiled machine that runs itself. And, I think if you're going to give anybody a chance at it, we've given a lot of chances through the years. So, I mean,
Yeah.
and pool's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah,
if
no,
I answered your question, actually, Mike, but
No.
no, you did. I mean, it's
get my way around it a little bit.
no. I mean, I it's all about perspective, right? So I mean, I've talked to players who are younger, and they're more optimistic because maybe they're a little wet behind the ears still, and then you have guys who are maybe on the tail end of their careers where they're like, I've seen it all before, I've heard it all before, so it's a little tougher to go and take a true bite out of it. I'm on the side of I love what Matchroom's doing. I think that it really makes for transparency, and that's where you gain more credibility
Of
more than
course.
anything else. So it's like if you want to go and be involved in those things that you were never a part of before, it's simple. Go and win, go and perform, go play some great pool, and if you're within one through whatever, you're gonna get in the Masters. If you're top whatever of
Right.
USA, you're gonna get in. If you're in top X of Europe, you're gonna go and get in. But you have to go and play great pool. It's not a tough fucking idea to go and sell people on.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
but they're always going to have their promotion company and an event company. So from a
Yeah.
Matchroom standpoint, their invitational events are always going to have a little bit of what's best for the audience in there. I mean, Efren did not earn his way onto Team Philippines this year for the World Cup of Pool, but it's still, no one's going to argue with that selection. So
No.
there's always going to be a little bit of that in there. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, you want to make it merit-based and transparent.
Yeah,
Everyone's gonna
and
watch Efren though.
Everyone's going to
well,
watch Efren.
well, and
Yeah.
not only that, I know that certain countries, for sure, I don't know about all of them, but certain countries definitely have an influence on their team as well. So, it wouldn't have been something that it wouldn't surprise me if, past Efren and Carlo, that some Puyots, maybe, I don't know, somebody in the Philippines was contacted first, and is this just no good for the Philippines that Efren's in the World Cup? And
Yeah.
the answer there probably,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but regardless, it doesn't have to be necessarily you know just a pure gift for someone. And
Right.
as far as the
Right.
Moscone Cups get involved, the best thing that
That's
that
yeah.
that could ever happen to Matchroom is that the top 5 players from each team are top 20 in the world. Players. That's what they want. That's why they've invested time and money over on our side of the pond with training and different things. And it wasn't just like, hey, let me pick who's going to sell a show. They're trying to get the team right. So,
Mhm.
along with, of course, we are. But so I think there's an investment that when you have such an investment, there has to be some slack at
Yeah.
times, right?
Yeah.
So,
Agreed. Well, I mean, if you're gonna invite Efren though, you might as well bring Earl in. I mean, let's just let's just go and really do it up big.
Earl against
All
well,
right.
Efren in the first round be great.
Yeah. No.
yeah,
Hey, you want to talk about box office?
Yeah.
yeah, right,
Yeah.
right. We'll see how that draw goes. It's only a month away, so not
Yeah.
even a
All right.
month away.
Yeah.
Well, let's circle back to the UK Open, and then we'll get you out of here on this, Jeremy. I want to take the Americans out. Who's your pick to go and win the UK Open?
Uh, I wish I knew what the score was over there with Fortunsky and Alcade, but I'm going to go with Fortunsky. I'm a big fan of him. I love his mental, and I think he's really
Trailing
just
6-5 right now.
okay. No big deal.
He
But
looked good at
Yeah.
the
Right.
Masters, man.
Yeah. Yeah. He looked
well,
good.
I just kind of think he's as talented as anybody on the planet, in my opinion. And I've said this for about 5 years now, maybe. Now, I used to have an attitude that with a mistake or a bad roll could linger a few games, but I see a totally different guy. And actually, we've spoken about it in Gibraltar, and it's a very conscious decision, him trying to get stronger mentally.
Yeah. Is that what he needs? Is that all he needs to start snapping some of these big wins off?
Yeah, I mean, I'm shot selection. I really think he levels out and buries a ball as well as anybody.
Anybody.
Um,
He
I
can
really
nail a
do.
tough shot.
I mean, yeah, I mean, he's the most athletic player on the table, in my opinion. And I think we're getting more towards that in our sport, to where we're really seeing a lot of athletes play the game, which is what made golf turn the corner and become so great. I know we're not going to get to see the ball go 300 yards down, whatever, but athletes are going to make the game even more elite.
So when you say the game more athletic, give me some examples. What kind of things are you talking about?
Well, just a little bit more poetry, emotion when you watch. That's a sign of someone that has a little more hand-eye and athleticism. Just you're going to see greater things happen. I think Now, don't get me wrong. We have to get that integrity and keep the game difficult to be able to see
Right.
those things more often. But like Shane, for instance, he's an athletic guy. And I talked about it in the last match. I don't think there's anyone better in the tournament when the balls lay tough. And so you get to see a little more of somebody taking over the game versus giving in. And I think you're going to see that more and more in the future. So, and I don't know. I talked to Fortunski a little bit more in Gibraltar than I normally do. And he said he was a good athlete growing up. I asked him, I said, "You're probably a pretty good athlete growing up." He said, "Yeah." Yeah. So, I mean, I didn't recognize
He
him.
looks like he can go and
Yeah.
give it to you a little bit.
Yeah,
He
he's
looks like a
either
tough
an
guy.
athlete or a juice man for the mob
Yeah.
because
Yeah, right.
yeah,
Well,
you're
exactly.
gonna
They
run
don't
away
call him
when
the
you see
butcher for
you're gonna
nothing.
run when you see him coming.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
hard to get words out of him, actually, to be honest with you, even if you speak Polish, I think. But
Yeah.
He's soft spoken,
don't.
man. Because when you look at him, you wouldn't expect it, but when he actually opens his mouth, like he's a very soft spoken person.
Yeah, he's
It
nice,
sounds
nice
like it.
kid too. Just really
Yeah.
nice kid.
Yeah, and
All
I
right,
think he's
Jeremy.
got a little
Go ahead.
like a trigger, because I've been watching him now for, I don't know, off and on a month and a half, pretty solid, which 5 years of it. But when he makes a mistake, watch, or when he gets a bad roll, he goes right to the bottled water. It's almost like, all right, I'm over with it. I'm done with
Okay.
it. Let me take a drink of
Yeah.
water. Yeah, I mean, he immediately, as soon as he sits down. So
Interesting.
I don't know if that's his process to get through it or not, but I like his chances. Yeah.
Yeah,
It
good.
seems to be working though because he's taken some steps, whereas maybe he's fallen short over the last few years. But I was real impressed with his poise, and you said it when he came to that tough shot. I mean, he was burying that ball on that table. It was
Oh, yeah.
it was something to be seen.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
seems like all the Polish players are starting to find that next level that we've been
Yep.
waiting for 3 or 4 years. Where as a group they were as talented as anyone. They were always top 16. 5 of them would be in the top 16. It was ridiculous. And now you're seeing, from Victor to Wojciech, all these guys are taking their turns now.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
There's a ton of them, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
Maciel's a really good player.
22 years old. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's maybe they just watching each other win now has kind of flipped the switch on all of them to amp up their games a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, imagine going on the road. I was fortunate enough to go on the road with some great players, and then also take some guys that end up being great players. And you driving around, spending time talking about pool. You're both thinking about pool. I mean, telepathy hadn't hit yet, but between the pool players, it's something close. So
Yeah.
these guys, as a tight unit, they have a little mini Euro tour they can play back home when things are a little bit slow, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they're definitely pushing each other with big wins. That's no coincidence. Zolnacki with a big win,
Yeah.
which he's not Polish actually, but he's Eastern Europe. But I'm slipping the name. Who won the World 10 ball? Who won the World 10?
Wojciech.
Wojciech.
Yeah. So
Wojciech,
yeah, and you have a variety. It's not one of them winning. It's like
right.
One's pushing 7, and
Right.
next one pushing another 6. So
Yeah.
which is pretty special to watch. Really, I think they're the tightest knit group that I've ever seen, and I know the Filipinos hang around with each other, but if you know the Filipinos, there's a couple groups that are real tight.
Yeah. Clicks.
A little more than there's one whole group that's super tight, or at least that's how it used to be a little bit more. But it seems like the Polish players are all like family.
Yeah. They're a good group of guys for sure.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to make for an exciting end to a great event, and we all enjoy listening to you, man. We appreciate you coming in and giving us some time, and we'll see what Team USA does, man. The next couple of days, it's going to be exciting 9-ball.
Yeah, it sure is. I mean, Skylar's still got to qualify tonight, so that's going to be a big match for him.
Yeah, he plays Robbie Capito.
Yeah, and Robbie, you saw what he did. Didn't let Albin shoot in his last match, and he played a real solid match before that. So Skylar's got to have a long talk with himself, and I think early in the tournament he wasn't enjoying himself as much like he normally does. So I talked to him a little bit about that, and hopefully he just gets off to a good start.
Give me your thoughts on the 14-year-old Finnish kid.
Oh, Riku.
I think it's the saw in the Netherlands.
In Vegas,
yeah, and also he was in Vegas, but a few years ago when he was like 11 or 10, maybe we stopped off in the Netherlands for a Euro Tour event. The team did coming back from Russia. I'm sure you remember it, Mike. Shane beat Kachi in the
Yeah,
finals.
Shane Bitkachi, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we might have lost Jeremy. It might have been
I knew that
time to
last
go.
question was going to do it.
It was
Should have got him.
it was time. We should have just got it out while we were ahead there, Panozo.
Yeah, wow, that's the story of my life. Always playing one shot too many.
Yeah, they seem to have lost their connection out there, but it's all right. Jeremy, we appreciate you coming on. If you're able to go and hear us, it's been pretty fun. In the UK Open, man, I love the coverage of it, Mike. It's been a lot of pool. I get up like at I've been getting up like at 3 in the morning, man, and then 4 in the morning sometimes, and just to get up and sweat it, and it's been nonstop through a decent hour here in the USA.
Yeah, no, it's been great. It's been great stuff. And, it's a first time event. I mean, the arena looks phenomenal. They had a great field of players. They had a lot of interest. This is a big thing for Matchroom, I think, because it's they want to get more involvement in the UK. Sky is a big thing for them, and as well as the zone. So it's important for them to get players and fans more engaged in the UK. They're going to have a lot of events there. They had a lot of events there already. They're trying to build it up there. So this was a really big stepping stone for them, and I think they've done a really good job with it. Like I said, the arena looks great, feels really strong. The programming's been great. So kudos to them. You just throw this one on top of the other events you've already got. Pretty nice one to just add to the mix.
Yeah, I'm curious because Emily alluded to, I think during the press conference of maybe doing some kind of tour in the UK. It was very short, but it was just kind of under her breath of just gauging what the interest would be out there, and it seemed like pool is just thriving, man, to have this kind of turnout, and the quality of it's been really great, Mike. Like I know early on the first day there was some whitewashes, and I mean you're always going to have dead money when you have open events,
Yeah.
but I love that there's been these guys that have just been able to barrel through and take down some champions,
Yeah.
and I know a part of that is just if somebody finds the break and finds a rhythm, they're gonna go and get there, right? But it's been a pretty exciting event, man. And
It's been a great event. I love that it's double elimination to the last 16, and you've got 256 starting. You get guys like Francisco, Ruiz lose his first match. You know how many matches you got to play to just get to the 16?
he should have lost the second match too.
Yes, that one was over too.
was-
But to watch guys grind through 6, 7, 8, 9 matches on the loser side, that's really cool stuff. That's what I always loved, and I still argue about the U.S. Open being the best tournament in its heyday because it was 200 plus fields, and it was double elimination all the way to the final. So there was some grind. You had to really have some wheels to make it through that event. And I like that about this event. I love that it's 256 double elimination all the way to 16 because it's cool to watch these guys battle through 6, 7, 8 matches on the loser side.
And they're having to go back to back to back today.
Yeah, that's the way it always was. I mean, you might play 4 matches in a day, and you just got to grind through them. And Jeremy talks about athletes. We'll find out who the athletes are when they grind through 4 matches a day.
Who are you liking, Mike?
It's I hate to be Jim Telfer on you, but I watched Shane. I don't know. I meant to ask Jeremy whether he thought it's a huge advantage. I think Shane's played every match virtually on one of the 2 TV tables, and so he's gotten a good handle for how those tables play. But he has looked so good. I have seen him miss, maybe 2 makeable shots. He's lost some racks where they've been, you've had to push out or a couple safeties here and there, but he's breaking like a beast, and he's running out from everywhere. Like Jeremy said, not easy table layouts, and just blasting through them like they're not. His cue ball control has been so good this week. Fillers look pretty unstoppable too. That would be some heavyweight stuff, seeing those 2 guys go head to head in the final 16 somewhere along the line, races to 11. That would be some pretty fancy shooting there. So those 2 guys have been the ones who impressed me the most. the other guys on the winner side, I mean, Dennis has played really solid.
There's a lot of guys who can sit you down for a long period of time, Mike, when you talk
Niels
about
has
this
played
format.
really well. Niels has played terrific. So, Filler, Karol Skawerski's in the final 16. Another poll that how many times have we said his name? You got Fortunski, you got Conrad, you've got Victor, you've got Maciel, you've got all these guys. And here's Karol Skawerski in the final 16. So, it's really shaping up to be some really good stuff coming up.
No, it really is, and there's just a lot of these guys that can go and do damage. I like that there's been a fun mix between going and having names and having upsets, and I think we've had
Right.
a very fair share of that this entire
Right.
event.
Right.
And then towards the end, it seems like a lot of it's more, the cream rising to the top. Shane getting through, Niels, Dennis. I don't think anybody will be surprised by any of these guys. Oliver makes it through to the final 16. David and Misko are tied at 7-7.
Yeah.
Mario and Thorsten. So it's a lot of names that we've been seeing a lot of lately come through across the finish line, or at least to get into what's the final stage of this event.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to it. It's really been a lot of fun. Like I mentioned earlier, the break has been a little bit tough, but it can make for also some exciting moments of sports too. When you have guys like, if Dennis is down 7-2, I'm like, well, give him a shot, and I know he can go and hit you with.
Does that
with
change?
a
Does
good
that
amount.
change with a wood rack and a referee for Dennis? Because he's been cut breaking it. I mean, he's been pretty soft breaking from the matches I've watched, and getting away with it. Does
My
that
gut would
change
tell
when
me,
they switch?
yeah, my gut would say yes for sure, but at the same time, we saw how much the wing ball was going in at the Masters with the triangle rack, and the consistency in which, I mean, I think they literally had, I want to say, less than 10 dry breaks that entire event, which is,
Mm-hmm.
when you think about it, just mind blowing, right?
Yeah.
So if they can get that wing ball down with any kind of consistency, and Dennis's ability to go and adapt to how he wants to control that one, or if he's trying to make that one, which a lot of them are not trying to do. Yeah, I like his chances for sure. Um, it's gonna make for a fun last 2 days, that's for
Oh,
sure.
it's
And
gonna be great.
I love that each match is gonna be streamed on TV table from here on out. After today, we're gonna be going over to DAZN. Like Jeremy said, a race to 11, triangle rack. It's gonna be more of like a lot of pool, Mike, and a lot of great
Yeah.
players playing
Yeah.
a longer race. So it's more uh traditional, but I'm excited, man. I really
Yeah.
am.
Me too. It's been a great event. It's been, it's like having a world championship all over again.
No, it really is. And you know what? Like, when it comes to Shane, this is one thing, and we talked about this when he won the world championship. Like, what if the dam bursts here, Mike? When it comes to Shane, now that he got the monkey off his back and he starts just free stroking and looking,
He looks
and,
like he's
and
free stroking this week. That's for
it
sure. He
looks like
looks.
he's hitting them in just pure,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and when you already have a guy with a massive break, and then he's just hitting them in and not caring, I mean,
Yeah.
look out, because
Yeah.
anything can go and happen. I
Yeah.
like I wouldn't be surprised now. I mean, especially with Albin being out, Jason being out, a lot of the big boys, the big
The
top,
big hitters.
the big
Yeah.
hitters are gone.
That,
So
that's why you
it's
got to
wide
look at
open.
Filler and Shane and say, that they look. Someone's going to have to play pretty well to keep them from getting to a point where they play each other.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, just looking at some of these guys who were in there, I think Oliver made it through, which Oliver's kind of had Shane's number over the last
Yeah.
2 years. So that's one guy that I would kind of be worried about, if I'm a fan of Shane's. But I think from here on, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure the 8 up top are going to be seeded, and then it's going to be a random draw from the 8 at the bottom.
Correct.
So I think,
They'll
because
get drawn into spots,
right.
and
So in other
that
words,
plays a big factor too.
no winner will play another winner.
Correct. But
Yeah.
the loser side is not going to be any easy matches, and that's what I remember the U.S. Open a couple of years ago when
No.
Shane and Jason blew through the winner's side, and when they redrew to the final 16 with the 8 from the loser side, Shane drew Wu, and
So
Shaw drew Filler, and that was
hey,
it. They
that was a
were both
listen.
out tomorrow.
I was there at the Mandalay Bay. You want to talk about some great pool? I mean, those matchups were
Yeah.
just
were
were
great.
fire, man. Especially that
Yeah.
Wu versus Shane one. That was just incredible. And
Yeah.
Jason was on tilt the moment he saw Filler's name. He was like,
He
again, I
did,
get
there's no
drawn the
doubt
kid.
about it. I
Yeah.
don't remember him shooting that match. So,
No, no,
yeah.
no, no. But it's with these. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if any of these guys go and get through. I don't think there's any name that I'm just looking through right now where I mean,
Say no
maybe like
chance. Yeah, there's not many you look at
like
and
an
say no
Alexa
chance.
or Imran. Those names would surprise me. But a lot of these guys are guys that we've seen lately. Mike, Robbie Capito, his name's been popping up a lot.
Yeah.
Everybody knows Nayuki Oi, Loho Sum, Maciel. Mark Bisterbosch maybe hasn't been playing as consistently over the last, but he really hasn't been
He's
around. He really hasn't
yeah,
been around either, Mike.
he's a game away from the final 16 too.
Sanjin
So
just beat Mika 9-2, and Sanjin, you want to talk about a kid who's coming up in the Europeans' rearview mirror? That
yeah,
guy, he should have won the European 9-ball championship, but he dogged
right,
the 9-ball, and
right.
Filler ended up winning that. He won the European 10-ball championship a few months later, so that's a guy who's just got a ton of upside.
Yeah.
But it's a phenomenal event. My hat's off to him because I can only imagine the amount of logistics it takes to go and pull this thing off, and
Oh.
with an already filled schedule, But
yeah, I
they've done a
keep
hell of a
looking
job.
over because I'm watching this Fortunsky David Alcade. It's 7-7, and they're playing a little bit of safety
I
play.
thought your wife was coming in, Mike. That's why I said, okay, let's get.
Nah, she knows better to walk in when I'm on TV.
All right, well, listen, if it's 7-7, I want to run too because I want to go.
Yeah. Go check it out.
We appreciate everyone for jumping on, and I think Joey might try to come on later, so we'll keep you guys posted, man. But we appreciate y'all for tuning in.